Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to a Trails of Cold Steel discussion. Now, if you're really quickly, this is going to be the intro. Obviously, I'm going to include time codes down below. It's going to be interesting how I do this one because, I'm going by some notes I've taken about the games and stuff like that because I am currently replaying all the games. There's a lot of information to get through, but it's going to be a front-loaded intro, so I do apologize. But I took a whole bunch of notes just as I'm replaying through the games because I really love these games. I've talked about them ad nauseum. It's obnoxious how much I'm super into these games. The Cold Steel games are the only ones I've played. I've watched someone play the Liberal games and the Crossbell games. So okay, really quickly, I've played Trails of Cold Steel 1, 2, and 3, each of them 3 times. I'm currently in my 4th playthrough of Trails of Cold Steel 1. Trails of Cold Steel 4, I've only played once. I did start up my replay, my second playthrough, maybe, I can't even remember. It was because I beat the game originally last year in November. It was specifically November 17th. And I want to say it was maybe a month or so later I started up, but I stopped because obviously there's a lot of stuff tied into not just 4, but also 3. But there's a lot of world building stuff about Zemuria, obviously you can get from the other games. So I wanted to go back and, catch up with the story and stuff like that. And there's a lot of really fascinating stuff that never comes up. You get context for some stuff in the Cold Steel games, but there's so much left that's not even referenced that goes down in the Liberal games or the Crossbell games. So I wanted that knowledge. And now that I do have that knowledge, my plan was always to replay these games. But I figured, me being me, I've already done discussion videos about them, but I feel like I've also, once again, that was just from my experience of playing the Cold Steel games themselves. Now that I have more knowledge of the universe as a whole from the Liberal games as well as the Crossbell games, I feel like it can add more to the discussion points. And so my perspective on things are a little bit different. So that's my main reason for also doing this. Because, just an outlet and place to just talk about these games is all I want to. So, my point is, as I'm going through these games, I am going to play 4 for a second time. But like I said, I'm going through them one by one like that. I have actually, these are actually some of the few games I've ever platinumed. I don't really go out of my way for trophies. But these games I do, just because I, love and enjoy them so much. I have platinumed 1, 2, and 3. The only thing I got to do for 4 are character-related bonding event trophies. Because I usually, save those for, subsequent playthroughs where you can unlock all the, bonding stuff. You can get the max number of bonding points. Usually that's why I wait till multiple playthroughs to get those, but I'm missing those and the nightmare trophy for beating the game on my nightmare. So those are the last trophy. So that's the last probably 13 or so trophies, might be more. But yeah, it's kind of beside the point, but yeah, I'm still excited to kind of get back to that point of getting to 4 and stuff like that. I do apologize. Like I said, I'm going to be a little all over the place. And like I said, this intro is going to be front-loaded. But what makes this different from the videos I've done before? Well, for one, I'm not recording video for this. These are going to be 100% audio. I don't know what the editing is going to be for this. I'm definitely going to include pictures from the game, but I just don't know if I'm going to use one main thumbnail picture just the entire video, or will I periodically shift it out? I know that's something that's come up in reviews and stuff like that people want me to do. I usually keep a static image of just a title card for reviews of TV shows and stuff like that. But for this, I figured I want to be able to record these whenever I want to and stuff like that. And it's just it's easier just not having to worry about recording video and just simply audio. So we'll ultimately, like I said, see how these turn out. But these are going to be even deeper dives than my previous ones because, like I said, I've been taking notes because there's a lot of stuff. Like I said, I expanded my knowledge of the universe, so I feel like there's a lot more context and conversation that can be had. What I am going to do about these, though, these are going to be spoiler discussions, but I'm gonna break them down in a way where it's I'm not going to talk about future stuff. So, this is all going to be about Cold Steel 1, but I'm going to break them down. Different ones will be section-based. For example, this one in particular is going to be the prologue and the first chapter, just because the prologue is super short, and I figured I'd, combine this with the first chapter. Or maybe I might get lazy and not combine them, but I think I will. But every subsequent chapter will, 2 on will be their own, thing. So Like I said, like they are going to be developed a little bit differently going forward because I just took straight up notes for like the first 2 or 3 chapters, but I have kind of shifted it up over the course of them. So like what I mean is like my notes going forward will be kind of divided between like main story points to cover, then like bonding amongst like the main cast of characters moments, and then like NPCs, and then like Zumeria, like, you know, world building lore about Erebonia and stuff like that, or Zumeria in general. So it's going to be stuff like that going forward. Like that's going to be stuff included in the time codes. But like I said, like it's all kind of more straightforward with the first, like maybe like the prologue and the first chapter or two. Like, you know, I'll explain that more probably like when I get to those eventual chapters. But yeah, like I said, these are going to be deeper dives. I'm not going to spoil anything. Like if I'm talking about the prologue, I will not mention stuff that's in chapter 1. I will not reference I won't reference Cold Steel 2, 3, or 4. It's going to be just a spoiler discussion, just like it's a weird thing to say, but if you're playing along and it's just like, oh, you just want like a blow by blow, just like talk about certain points. That's all these are meant to be. So like I said, like, so like say for example, you want to just hear like, okay, like I played the prologue in the first chapter and you want to just hear my breakdowns and stuff like that. Like I said, I'll include the time code so you can jump around to stuff, but that's like the main crux of it. Like it'll be that. I will be referencing other games. The Burrow stuff is going to be like free reign because obviously continuity wise, that happened like a year to 2 years ago. Time frame, because like they're a little inconsistent with that, because I'm also trying to figure out like because it also depends on like the time frame of like how long the events of Sky chapters 1 and like first and second chapter, like how long like that transition, like that story was being told, plus like because I know it's been like maybe like a year and a half in totality. It's been like 2 years since the LeBurl incident, you know, and then it's also been like a year and a half roughly speaking since Sky the Third. So they're going to be stuff I'm going to talk about them. So if you don't want spoilers, like I will try to keep it in mind to like avoid a lot of that. But some of this will like touch on the Sky stuff. So the cross-spell stuff is going to be interesting because I'm going to try and only correlate the cross-spell stuff when it's pertinent to the timeline. Because if you're unaware, I'll go into this more when we you'll get into the actual discussions. But the cross-spell games and the 2 cross-spell games and the first 2 Cold Steel games happen simultaneously. There's overlap between their stories. So like the events that are happening in one, like they do affect the events in others. Like, you know, like I said, I'll go into that more when it comes up. But I will only discuss stuff when it parallels in the stories, because like certain points in the stories do overlap. So once information that I'm aware of because of those 2 cross-spell games, because even though they're taking place simultaneously, those games came out before the Cold Steel games, but I just want to do it like that. That way I'm not just full-blown spoiling stuff, because maybe some people, because the cross-spell games are going to come out on console, but they're currently only out on PC. There are the Geofront translations, but like an official translation is going to come out on console like in 2023 or something like that. So stuff like that to keep in mind. So I want to, like I said, I do apologize for this being so front-loaded, but I just want to kind of get a lot of that across. But yeah, like I said, I just want to like have an outlet just to like gush and talk about these games, because I think they're so fun. I just enjoy them, and it gets me giddy like diving back into this world, because like I said, out of any of the games, these are the ones I've played like firsthand. I love the other ones, but the Cold Steel games will have a special place in my heart because they're the first ones of this series I played, and these are the characters I got attached to. This is the country in Zumeria I got attached to, which is very interesting, and I'll probably bring that up a little bit later on too, just like what that means. Like, it's kind of interesting starting with Erebonia, and just when you consider how other countries feel about Erebonia, but we'll get to that. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to kind of include all of that. So like I said, once again, these will be spoiler discussions, but they will be like specifically tied to the respective chapter. It's like maybe you're like, oh, I want to go back and hear other people's thoughts about certain things and stuff like that. So, this is just supposed to be an outlet like that, but also just like an open forum. Like I said, I want to keep these discussions specifically tied to like what's going on in the game at that point in time. I'd rather not reference stuff in the future. I know that's kind of hard, especially with the nature of what 1 is, because I know 1 is an issue for certain people, because it's a nice entry point, but it's like, because it will always stick to me, because I know someone said like they almost gave up on the series because of 1, because they feel like nothing really happens until later. But obviously, like, a lot of it, like, if you don't have 1, you don't have the rest of the series. Yes, it's a lot of groundwork set up, sure, but I think it's still very important. Like, to me, like, 3 is probably still my favorite, like, with everything that goes down, but it's like, I think without 1, we wouldn't be, like, it does a lot of great character building, a lot of world building, a lot of story building. Like, it's a lot of, like, setup for the rest of the arc, you know? I mean, it's like part 1 to, you know, because the way the games are, like, you know, 1 is the first half of the, like, the first half of the arc, and then, like, 2 is kind of like the closing to the first arc, and then 3 and 4 are like the back half of the arc. Like, 3 is the opening act to the back half of the arc, and then 4 is the closing act to the back of the arc. So you get what I hopefully that's coming across clearly. So like, I know, like, 1 has its slow points, so like for some people it might be like, oh, there's not a lot to go, but like there actually is, especially like I said, with the knowledge of the other games tied in, but just also like discussion points of what we know at these specific points in the story. So like I said, I hope, once again, apologizing from everything being front loaded, but we will be getting into things going forward.